Welcome. I am Terry Ann Calandri. You can see I'm a performance and mental coach. I'm specialized in sport and exercise psychology, also known as performance psychology. Thank you for Arturo, Bam, Frisuset, the event, and also Lena that's not here, for introducing the topic of the importance of psychology when it comes to sports, breakdance especially in this case. We were gonna have ice-breaking exercise, but we're a bit out of time, so we're not gonna do it, but I think it's okay, because we don't need ice-breaking here. Everybody knows each other more or less, everybody's outspoken, and so I guess everybody will feel comfortable enough to communicate later on when it's needed. So a little bit about me. Tina states my okay. I'm also dancer. Been dancing hip hop for 15 years. Just started breaking last 4 years. Been studying sports psychology and psychology around a little bit, collaborating with projects, assisting athletes, breakdancers as well, and the last collaboration is here in Sweden, where I settled 2 years ago with the BAM Kultur and BAM Sport, like Arturo was mentioning. So what is sports psychology? Maybe some of you already know. In case you didn't know, it's a scientific discipline, it's a profession, it's a field of research that seeks to understand performance. When I talk about performance, I don't only mean dance. Of course, dance is included, and it's the focus of this seminar. But I mean any type of performance. Could be at your workplace, because I know many of us have also day jobs. Could be in as a parent, for example. Could be anything that has an end goal to it. So we study thoughts, emotions, behavior, context of athletic environments, and strive to create conditions to reach peak performance. So, talking about peak performance, these are two concepts, just to get in a bit of vocabulary in. Peak performance in sports psychology is considered when somebody becomes great at performing a task. Another concept really important in sports psychology and in street dance is the concept of being in the zone, that many of you may also know as flow. Researchers associate this with excellence. Interviews have shown people describe it as letting it happen and reaching a goal. Peak performance and being in the zone so are something that you have to reach, that you have to be able, that you have to be prepared for, that you have to reach through a certain state of mind. So what I want to know, if anybody wants to share with us, what is the state of mind they have to have, in their opinion, to reach peak performance and being in the zone? Anybody wants to share? What's their experience?
I can tell you one thing. Both of my brothers, they practice Qigong, Falun Gong. You know Qigong, right?
No.
Chinese energy, like Tai Chi.
Okay, thank you.
You know, very powerful. And I remember I'm a DJ, so I went to a DJ battle, and I had never been in a battle, and there was no Swedish championship that year. So they practiced with me a little, and before I went to the battle, I was standing outside the tent and doing these exercises, and I came in this state of mind, like everything is just like white, you know, no thoughts. I came up, I came to the finals, I did the same thing again, I won the whole contest. It was just so much different. While yesterday when I was DJing, I had a lot of things on my mind all the time. So I would love, that's why I'm here, to listen to this, to get in that state in different kind of ways.
Yeah, thanks for being here. In fact, as you were describing it as white. You associated a color to the experience, and many people describe it in a different way, and it's very subjective. It's a subjective experience, but as you said, then it helps you reach the peak performance in that sense. Anybody else? Thank you.
I can maybe mention, my name is Amigo. When I dance, I try to forget it. Like actually, I think like we study everything to be in this moment or be in the zone to forget everything. Like not thinking with the brain to feel with the heart. I think this is the maybe the peak goal for everybody dancer. If you are on stage, you are connected. You are not in this space. You are somewhere else. I can relate in the zone, being in the zone. This with my idea to be, if you dance, not to think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have two slightly different thoughts about what it means being in the zone and how it helps reach peak performance. I remember really well about the color white. You described the feeling you had of peace, and while Amigo talked about forgetting. So it's this is just to show that being in the zone and the way we reach peak performance is different, is subjective. Everybody has their own way to do it, their own meaning, and it all depends from how we are, what our environment is, how we woke up that day, many factors. So in psychology, the person I, is divided in conscious mind and unconscious mind. It's symbolized here with an iceberg, and really briefly, the conscious mind is what we experience, what we see with our five senses, what we feel, what we are aware of. And you can see it's a really small part of the iceberg compared to what is symbolized as the unconscious mind, which is the part underneath of the iceberg. That's the bigger, most important part that we don't know about. Also, researchers haven't found out everything about it 100% yet, probably never will. Also because the brain is always developing. But as you can see by its its length, the unconscious mind is much bigger, and that means it's much more important. The unconscious mind is able to influence the conscious mind in a significant way. So by learning how to deal with the unconscious mind, we have more tools to actually influence reality. So the conscious mind, what we do, how we act. And that's why in sports psychology we deal with what's unconscious, because it's more difficult to control. And there are many tools for that. We're gonna see one of them today, really broadly. Briefly, what do we do? We do research. Sports psychologists do research, scientific research, create, test interventions, experiments, and collaborate with sports science and physiology, which studies the body, neuroscience that studies the brain, and sociology that studies the behavior that people have in between each other. So it's a teamwork. it's never only the sports psychologist. So, for example, if one of you were to ask me, hey, let's have a session, I have this issue before I start a battle, I get really stressed, for example. And by talking to me, I realized what you really need is just a massage. I will tell you to go to a physiotherapist because you don't need me. So it's a teamwork. It's not about it's not about working on your own. Again, applied practice in sports psychology is really important because scientists, they research, they discover, and then it's our turn to apply, to actually make the difference for the community and for the artists, for the performance, of course. So we work with individual performers, like dancers, for example, coaches, teams, parents, judges, and the whole environment. Everything that could influence the performance, from the people who build the area in which the performance is going to be held, to the people who clean the area, to the children, to literally every single thing that could help or not performance. In fact, it's called proactive approach. You can see me a couple of times proactively approaching. I was teaching another workshop over on the right corner, and on the bottom left, I was having a hip-hop workshop for children with a different cultural background and using hip-hop as a means of integration and equality promotion, which was really good. Then COVID came, so couldn't finish the project, but hip-hop is a really good communication tool because it's a common language, and no matter what background you have, it eases the communication. So it was really nice. So this huge list of topics are all the techniques that are used, not all, but some of the techniques that are used from sports psychologists to help performers reach their peak performance, their flow. We are just scratching the surface, but this is just to let you know the amount of things you as athletes or as performers, non-dancers, whoever, everything you could work on. So to achieve peak performance, as we were saying before, we need optimal mindset. And we're gonna do an activity about that, focusing on emotions, which are really important when it comes to competition. I'm gonna ask you to take 30 seconds and think about your best performance. Doesn't have to be dance. I know there are some non-dancers here. Maybe it can be at the office, at home, or a dance competition, of course. Just spend a second recalling the best performance, consider everything that went well, and how did you feel? And go to the worst performance. Again, 30 seconds, think about your worst performance, most recent one if possible. Consider what didn't go well and how did you feel. Keeping in mind what you thought about, best and worst recent performance in your opinion. Think about, take your time when you finish with the papers. 5 facilitating emotions, and 5 performance hindering emotions. That means write down 5 emotions that enabled you to achieve that good performance that you were thinking about, and 5 emotions that made the performance difficult for you. There are some words that you can use here. As you can see, these emotions are labeled as positive and negative. This is the way society labels them, and psychology also labels them like that, because they are associated to positive and negative outcomes commonly. But that doesn't mean that emotions that are labeled positive only bring positive outcomes. Vice versa, that doesn't mean that negative emotions that, for example, the ones that are here, bring only negative outcomes. I'll show you an example. Keep your papers there, we're gonna talk about them soon. So, this is an example of the mixture between positive and negative emotions, so-called, but subjectively can be labeled in different ways. So the emotion, for example, agitated, which is a performance facilitating emotion, was labeled as a negative emotion, but for this person in this example was a facilitating emotions. With this, I just want you to understand that your emotions are yours and you only know why you have them, and whether it's society, your psychologist, something that you read, or anything, if the emotions that helps you reach the peak performance is negative, considered negative, but it still makes you reach your goal, then that's the way to go. With this example, now I want you to take 1 minute, read again your papers, and see if there are some emotions that you labeled as positive or negative because society tells us that they should be labeled as that. And with this new mindset, with this new example, that maybe for some is not new, double check and see if there are emotions that could be labeled in some way, but for you help your performance or make it more detrimental. Point angry is why we are all here, I would say, because hip-hop was born from a place of anger, rebellion, being scared, all negative emotions, but they created such a nice environment and such a nice movement that enabled us all to be here today. So, especially in the case of street dance and hip-hop, anger, being aggressive also, violence, because when hip-hop was born, violence was not something uncommon in those environments, helped people express themselves with art. Thank you for sharing. Okay, last thing, we talked about emotions, we talked about positive and negative emotions. We didn't talk about the intensity of the emotions. That is really important. So in this function that you see on the right side, the vertical line represents the spectrum of good and poor performance. The horizontal line represents the spectrum of emotional arousal, which is emotional intensity. So low is over-aroused, high, low is under-aroused, and the high is over-aroused. You see that when the emotional intensity is too low, also the performance is poor. While if the emotional intensity is high, for example, anger, we can take an example for anger, then the also the performance will be poor. So one has to try to have this optimal, it's called zone of optimal functioning, where your emotions are exactly where you decide for them to be regarding its intensity. And the optimal zone is represented by the red circle, which corresponds to good performance. So for example, if one sees that anger is something that can influence one's performance a lot, then they will try through mental skills techniques, whether it's with your sports psychologist or with your coach, they will try to use anger as a tool, get it in its optimal level, in its optimal state of intensity, in order to achieve peak performance, flow, being in the zone. It's a lot, I know, a lot about emotions. This is just one part of one topic. It's a huge world, the world of unconsciousness. So if you have any questions or any doubts, you can contact what you see over there. You can take a picture. This presentation was in collaboration with my university colleague, Juliano Pereira. Hi, Juliano. And I will finish with a quote from a known person, that life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, but it's about learning to dance in the rain. With that, I want to just say that my job is not to teach you how to weather the storm, but just to give you the tools so that you can do it yourself by dancing in this case. So thank you, and if there are any questions.